All right, I learned on day 3 that my recording device, the maximum limit is 2 hours and 15 minutes. It was a 277-page document, and I wasn't able to read the whole thing. I missed about the last 1/3 of the document. Day 4 has 2 files. One file is 222 pages. I think the other document is around 50 or 60 pages. So I'm just going to try to get 111 pages in for part 1. And then we'll do the last 111 pages for part 2. I didn't really want to do it in parts, but I don't have a recording device that can go for over 2 hours and 15 minutes. So at least one that we'll post to YouTube anyway. All right, this is day 4, Anchorage, Alaska. Anchorage, Alaska. Call to order of the court at 8:36 a.m. Jury not present, all parties present. The clerk of Alaska is now in session with the Honorable Robert J. Bryan presiding. Please be seated. Good morning. Counsel, good morning. The court, I have a motion in limine from Ms. Hayden this morning. Are you going to get to that early in the day or here? Or is that... No, we're not, Your Honor, but if you want to, I can respond briefly. The court, well, the only thing I wanted to say is that if there's a serious issue about the admissibility of these documents, I got to look at them, and it would help if I looked at them ahead of time, but I don't know. Ms. Lamoureux, I informed the counsel this morning that we do not intend to introduce the Anarchist Cookbook or the Citizen's Rulebook. I think the only item that may be relevant to that motion is that we've identified as Exhibit 446. If the court would like to review those documents in advance of the testimony, that's the exhibit, I think, that the motion may be referring to. But I don't anticipate that coming up until... What's in 446? Ms. Lamoureux, those are documents that were seized from Mr. Vernon's residence, and they were handwritten notes of his regarding militia matters. I can pull it if you want to go into more detail about it. I don't know what I need to do. I sort of had the impression that you were going to put in some books that... Ms. Lamoureux, let me check to see if the Alaska Peacemakers Militia, that might be included in that exhibit, Your Honor. The court, yeah, well, I don't know what about that one. That's a little different category than the other two. Ms. Hayden, I mean, Your Honor, basically I was referring to the government's proposed exhibit list as 285 and 286, and basically says miscellaneous militia books and anarchist cookbook. Ms. Lamoureux, and I have to apologize, Your Honor, when we labeled this working exhibit list, we took the names of the items as they were seized by the FBI, so the FBI did seize those items, but it doesn't accurately reflect the documents that we're introducing. The court, okay, all right. And again, Your Honor, the kind of raises an issue that has been troubling me yesterday, that when the government is introducing actual physical exhibits, and although, the government tells us that they're in the exhibit books that we have, for instance, yesterday with the cell phone, that didn't apply to my client, but I thought it was only a cell phone, and then there were all these posits and stickies and the court, didn't see, and they were not in the exhibit list. So I'm going to require that anytime the government is going to introduce a physical exhibit, that they show it to me prior. And this happened again with the box from the court, I believe from Coleman Berry's house. No, you got a right to look at the exhibits before you have to make your objections. So, yes, Your Honor, and perhaps you could do that. We could do that maybe over a break or something. I can, go and look at them all, but the more out-of-court stuff you can do to help us in court, the better. Okay, Ms. Hayden, but I'm just going by the description of what the government intends. Offering, 285, 286, and it does say Anarchist Cookbook, but that would go into my motion in limine as well as the Citizen's Handbook and the motion training and the militia training manual and anything else that might be covered under the exhibit. It says miscellaneous. And the court, Ms. Hayden, I don't know what it is. If you don't know ahead of time when the exhibit's marked and identified, generally counsel for the defense has a right to look at it and make their objections. And if it's a book, I got to read the darn thing before I can rule on it if it's a serious objection. So I need to have those things in advance too for evening reading. All right, Ms. Hayden, and Your Honor, my objection would cover any reference to the Anarchist Cookbook. The court, that is a little broad, and I don't know how that might come up. I'll take those objections as they come. Okay, I just want to say one thing to the counsel, staff, defendants, everybody involved in this case. You got to cooperate with the Marshal Service and do what they tell you. If a problem comes up, you you defendants talk to your lawyers about it, and if it's appropriate, they'll bring it up with the marshals or bring it to me. But in the meantime, when they tell you what to do or what not to do in court, or coming and going or at the jail or wherever, do what they tell you and raise the issue later. There was nothing serious that occurred that's been reported to me, but a few things that make me want to say those words to you that's important, all right? Are we ready for the jury? Miss Hayden, Your Honor, I do have another issue. Yeah, and I'm concerned about Mr. Vernon's health. He tells me this morning that he's not sure he can go forward today. He is having some health issues. The marshals are aware of his health issues, and I think it's something that the court needs to inquire about. I believe the marshal, that is, voice undiscernible, which one? Indiscernible, is in the charge of security here in the courtroom, is aware of that, and I'm not sure that he's well enough to proceed today. Well, it's like, when I was in the Army, my boss told me one day when some guy didn't show up to work and he's either on sick call or he's at work. And so if there's a medical problem, I would expect there would be a doctor who would tell us about it. And I don't know the arrangements there are for the sort of thing, but I understand that Mr. Vernon's getting the medication he's supposed to get. I don't know what is, you're shaking your head. I don't know, what that depends on what your doctor prescribes, and I don't have any idea that what doctors are involved with Mr. Vernon's health. So, you're kind of catching me short. I don't know. The court, I don't feel that great myself, but that's no reason to proceed. That's no reason not to proceed unless there's some serious medical issues, and I don't know what it would be. Well, Your Honor, Mr. Hayden, Mr. Vernon tells me that this is a serious medical issue for him. I don't have any medical reports. I don't know what the jail is doing for him or is not doing for him. I know that we discussed this issue yesterday with the marshals, but today I think he had some sort of incident last night. Perhaps the marshals can speak to that. I was not there, so I'm not quite sure what happened, but I think this is a serious issue and we need to look into it. Perhaps the court could inquire Mr. Vernon or the marshals. Well, it's been an ongoing problem, Your Honor, for a number of weeks. Well, I guess, Miss Hayden, you're kind of dumping it on me, and I kind of want to dump it back on you. I don't know, Mr. Olson. What do you know about this? The U.S. Deputy Marshal. Your Honor, I can provide to Miss Hayden some email documentation between the Marshal's service and the medical staff at the jail. And we, as she said, have been dealing with the problem. The medical issue is not emergent. Last night he complained of feeling ill. We had him checked out by medical staff. The medical staff is fully aware, and the medical staff has been attending to him, and the medical staff cleared him to leave this morning. If there's any further or new information that needs to be addressed, we could certainly take a recess and request an ambulance, or if you don't feel that's necessary, I'll leave that up to you, your judgment. Miss Hayden, Your Honor, I would have an obligation to make sure that my client can assist me in his defense during this trial. And if he is so in such distress, the court, that he cannot do that. I understand all that. What I want to know is, what's the problem? The medical staff says he's cleared. I don't know where else to go other than that. Well, I believe that, and Mr. Vernon would like to, Mr. Vernon, address the court with the issues. The court, I don't know what you want to say, but you have to be careful that you don't violate your own rights to remain silent and so forth here. Say more than is in your interest. But if you want to tell me what your problem is, I'll listen. Can you use the microphone? Thank you. The defendant, Vernon. 2 weeks ago, last Saturday, I went to the hospital over there for this thing. They don't know what it is. I told them what it was. They don't listen. I told them what I need to take to get it out to me. The doctor at the hospital gave them good notice on what to give me and let it run its course, get it out of me. If not, it causes an infection in me. They let it go now to where it's got to cellulosis. It's got in my leg. When it does this, it happened 3 times to me before since I've had this heavy metal poisoning. They took that day, they were supposed to keep giving me that Dimectin. When I take it to start with, this colchicine to go with it to kick it out. And they took me, as soon as I got back to the HOS or to the DOC, they cut it in half. They gave it to me for that morning and then cut it off for the last 9 days, 10 days today. If you get it out of me, it goes out of me. If it doesn't, it turns into infection. And if not, it goes into my heart and it starts giving me problems like it did last night. And it doesn't start doing it again, and it's going to start doing it again today. That's all I can say. Just let me have the pills. I know what I go through and what I need to do. If not, you can call my wife. She'll tell you exactly what goes on. The court, and She's seen me every time it's happened. Is this some prescription? Yes, it is. What's the name of it? Endomethacin. It has to kick it out of me first, and they give me the colchicine to clean it up, or they give me another high-powered something to kill the infection. I forgot the name of it. Anyways, if I get it, it happens. It goes away. It takes about 4 days to start it and get it going. What goes away? Is that like Vernon? It kills the infection in me. It has to get it. It's not got out. It's not a gout. It's not a gout. It's called pseudo gout from the heavy metals that are in me. It just leaches into me and causes me all kinds of problems. I get swollen in all my joints from both sides, both legs. It gets in my hips. It gets in my shoulders and my arms. And if I don't get this out of me, it starts working everywhere else. You can call my wife. She'll tell you everything about it. She's watched it happen to me before. Mr. Olson, is he getting the medicine or something else? Is he getting that medicine or something else? U.S. Deputy Marshal. Your Honor, I have one document that describes endomethacin and its properties and what it's used to treat, and I have an email correspondence between us and the medical staff where we ask the medical staff to do as Mr. Vernon has asked him, to give him 50 milligrams versus 20 milligrams. And I have on that document as of last Wednesday, May 2nd, where they agreed to go ahead and do that. To my knowledge, it's been done. That's Mr. Vernon. It has not been done. Deputy Marshal, that's the information I'm getting. Defendant Vernon, I've got nothing of that. I'm supposed to take it 3 to 4 times a day. I've got nothing of that. All I need is just give it to me and get it out of me. A simple question, a simple request. The court, well, you know, this is very interesting, but the person who knows about this should be a physician taking care of Mr. Vernon, and that's the information I don't have. The doctor at the hospital, I'm sorry, this ain't funny, but it's like the whole medical system screwed up. The legal system is screwed up. The judicial system screwed up. The prison marshals are screwed up, and it's like a bunch of screw-ups speaking with a bunch of screw-ups, you know. I hadn't been the doctor in 30 years. I'm never going to go to the freaking doctor, man. Doctors are about as evil as lawyers. The doctors at the hospital told me if it didn't go away in 4 days, I was supposed to go back over there, and there was supposed to take me back to him in 4 days. Ryan, the guy that was with me, well, you know, you're telling me stuff that I don't know the answer to. I know that, I know. And so the question is, what do we do about this situation right now? And who's the doctor? Who's your regular doctor that prescribed this? The last one would be in Delta. I don't know if he's business up there anymore. It's a clinic in Delta. And Dr. Andreasen, who is the hospital most recently deal with it? I believe his name is Wilmer or Weimer or Wyman, something like that. I didn't get his name wrote down. The Deputy Marshal, Your Honor, as far as his care 2 weeks ago, when our operations supervisor, Ryan Filson, took him to the hospital and dealt with the doctor, I can ask the medical staff to fax over those records. That would be the most recent. Mr. Kurtner, Your Honor, since this is Thursday, I think Mr. Vernon can make it through the day if he can work with the marshals tomorrow on our day off on dealing with this medical issue. The court, well, you know, that makes sense, I guess, to me, because if any of us drops out here, it's a big problem for a lot of people and a lot of expense. But you know, it's very difficult for the marshal's office, for the court, for everybody, when somebody says they're sick and a doctor isn't here to tell us what the deal is. So I'm inclined to take Mr. Kurtner's suggestion and proceed and try to get to the bottom of this and find out from a physician. I don't know. You know, you mentioned medical staff at the jail. I don't know who that is, but it sounds to me like a physician needs to monitor Mr. Vernon's health and be sure that he gets the right meds, whatever that is. And you know, one guy says he's getting them. He says he's not. I don't know. That's a medical question. I can't do math or science. That's why I went to law school. All right, let's bring the jury in and go to work and try to resolve that. Your Honors, sorry, I have one more matter I wanted to bring up before the jury. Yeah, go ahead. Miss Lamoureux, okay. Thank you. Last night I realized I failed to offer into evidence 2 firearms that were seized from the storage area in Mr. Barney's house. Counsel has agreed to stipulate to the admission of those firearms. I thought we should go ahead and inquire and put that on the record now before I showed them to the Trooper Howe, even though she didn't find those 2 firearms, and those exhibits are 207 and 208, and those exhibits may be admitted now? Yes, we already stipulated. No objection, we already stipulated. I have no objection, Your Honor. All right, that's fine. 207, 208 admitted. Anything else? Yeah, we have 192 to deal with. All right, bring in the jury here and we'll get some work done. It's jury in at 8:54 a.m. The court. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I told you before we started that there were times that I had to take up matters outside of your presence, and we've been dealing with some evidentiary matters and other things this morning. And I'm sorry to steal the time from you, but it's necessary part of the process. You may recall last night before we left, we were discussing Exhibit 192, which are an exhibit containing some documents. Exhibit 192 may be admitted, but you should understand that it's not offered to prove the truth of the matters contained in the documents. The other exhibits were admitted in your absence in Exhibits 207, 208, which are firearms. Yvonne Howell, plaintiff's witness, resumes to stand, previously sworn, direct examination. Miss Lamoureux, good morning. Good morning. Let's go ahead and start with those exhibits that were just admitted. Exhibits 207, 208, I'd like to show them to you. Do you have an opportunity to review those firearms this morning? Yes, ma'am. And what is your understanding of those firearms were found? There is a storage area off the office. I don't know the label, but that's where it was. Label, you mean like the room identification number? Correct. Okay, but the storage area was off the office, and your understanding is where those firearms were found? Yes, ma'am. Okay, go ahead and look at that. What do you have in your front of you? What exhibit number? That's 207. Go ahead and take out of the box and show it to the jury, please. And if you could show the other side as well, maybe. Oh, sorry, keep it up, thanks. But it's secured, right? Yes, it's secured. I'll go ahead and sit down. Okay. Can you describe what that firearm is? Do you know what it is? I know it is a 223. It's something similar we have in as troopers. And what is the item there on top of the firearm? This is a scope. And then what else is on top of it there? Is there something else? I know this is something that's not usually on the weapon. I know that it's added. I know that it's there to add additional items. Do you have one of those? Do you have one of those on your firearm? I do not. And it's an AR-15, correct? And you can go ahead and read the serial number for it. It's a TR-0645. And what type of firearm is it? 226 rifle. 226? Mm-hmm. Is that what the box? Or a 223, pardon me, 223. Okay, thank you. You can put that back in the box, and if you could please show the jury Exhibit 208, thank you. Can you describe what that is? It was a Romanian WASR-10 rifle. And what caliber? .22. I know the shoots 7.62 rounds. It's okay, great. Go back to the search of Coleman Barney's house. Your role was to search the office, correct? Yes, ma'am. And you found a number of documents there? Yes, ma'am. I'd like to turn your attention now to what's been admitted at Exhibit 192. Okay, if we could have the lights, Madam Clerk. Do you see the folders there? Yes, ma'am. And what is the label on the folder? APM, Alaska Peacemakers Militia. And is that how you found it? Yes, ma'am. Okay, let's turn to the next page, please. You look at the title there. It says what? Cover sheet. Okay, there's a couple of references to case numbers here in the first paragraph. Right, 4F. What are the 4FA 10762, 4FA 10993, Francis August Schaefer Cox? And okay, and the first paragraph refers to an individual. Who's the individual named in number 1? Martino Guerrero and Ronald J. Woods. And do you know who either of those individuals are? I know that Martin is the clerk of the court in Fairbanks. Is that in state court? Yes, ma'am. Okay, turning to paragraph 2, what is the name referenced in that paragraph? Michael McConaughey. And do you know who that is? I know he's a judge in Fairbanks as well, state court. And then turning in paragraph 3, are there a couple of names referenced in that paragraph? Arnie Saul DeWettle, I believe is how you say his name, and then Mike Gray, both district attorneys. Arnie is in assistant district court in Fairbanks. Okay, let's turn to the next page if counsel doesn't have any objection. No objection times 3. Can you tell me what the document is labeled? Document of the Treasury, Internal Revenue Service information referral. And is there some name in the first box? Michael McConaughey. And then in the fourth paragraph, there's a few boxes checked for alleged violation of income tax law, false or altered documents, unreported income, and public or political corruption. And then paragraph 8, can you read the paragraph, please? Michael McConaughey was served with a Form F, 56F, on which he was fired from being trustee of Francis August Schaefer Cox estate. Date of the firing was February 11, 2011. McConaughey refused to stand down and issue illegal process bonds against Francis August Cox's estate on February 14, 2011, and then selected the bonds to keep the information from being public, sealed the bonds. And then paragraph E says what? I personally observed the above conduct on February 14, 2011 while in the presence of Michael McConaughey. And there's a name in paragraph 6, Kenneth Thiesing. Okay, let's turn now to page 5. Does that appear to be the same document that we were just looking at? Yes, ma'am. On page 3, yes, ma'am. What is the name down at the bottom of the paragraph 6? Coleman Lee Barney. And there's an address there, 2698 Silver Street in North Pole. That's the address you search, yes, ma'am. And there's a phone number there too, 907-488-2479. And Miss Lamoureux, and if we could jump to page 7, please. Does that appear to be the same document as the other 2 pages we were just looking at? Yes, ma'am. Similar information in paragraph 8, yes, ma'am. And if you look down at paragraph 6 at the bottom, what is the name reflected there? Jerry Raymond Olson. Okay, and I'd like to move now to Exhibit 195 that we've identified as 195 for the witness and defense counsel. Would anyone like to review the original item? Yes, I would. Ms. Lamro, there's a copy of these documents in everyone's binders, page 195, Exhibit 195. Does counsel have an objection? Yes, I have an objection on hearsay. Can you get in front of the microphone? Mr. Dooley, objection based on hearsay and relevance. Court, the copies you have in the book are all copied over each other. I don't know what this is. Let me see it. Court, relevance. What is the relevance of this? Lamro, the documents that there correspond with the firearm that was just shown to the jury and the date of purchase is relevant. The court, all right, 195 may be admitted. If you could please show the witness Exhibit 195, Your Honor, I'd like to just note that I join in Mr. Dooley's objection. Do you recognize that exhibit? Yes, ma'am. Is that an item that you found in Coleman Barney's office? Yes, ma'am. Let's go ahead and show it to the jury, please. What are we looking at here, there? A receipt and an invoice. Okay, where's the receipt from? ProTech Alaska. And what is the date reflected on that receipt? The date is February 11, 2010. And what is the name of the bottom of that receipt? Rachel Ann Barney. Okay, if we turn to the next page, please, what does that show? Rachel Barney, 2698C, Silver Street, North Pole, and Para, USA, TTR, serial number TR0645, and the date is February 11, 2010. And that's the same serial number that you just read off the firearm you showed the jury? Yes, ma'am. I'd like to show you now what's marked for identification at Exhibit 196. Lamro, does counsel want to inspect the original? Yes, I would. And as I indicated before we started today, the government intends to inquire of pages 717, 18, 19. Maybe while counsel's reviewing that, if I could move on to another topic with the trooper. We're almost done. We've only got about 5 or 6 pages to look at. Coleman Barney has no objection. No objection, Your Honor. Miss Hayden, any objection to this exhibit? No, Your Honor. All right, we exhibit it. What exhibit was it? 196. 196 may be admitted. Trooper Howe, do you recognize that item? Yes, ma'am. And what is it? A green portfolio that was found in the office area. Okay, I'd like to direct your attention to page 7. There are a number of documents contained inside that portfolio. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. It sort of expands out. Is that right? Correct. On page 7 here, there are 3 steps listed. Step 1 is what? Fill out common law complaint form. Step 2, declare your status as a sovereign and rebut your status as legal fiction. What's the under there say? Stamp your license used under duress by private necessity of the sovereign. What's step 3? Common law trial. And there's an email address at the bottom, akcourtfraud@gmail.com. And it looks like there's a next meeting date right above that, Saturday, January 15th. 6:30 p.m. And what's the phone number? 456-2482. Okay, Miss Lamro, let's move on to page 7. What does that say at the top there? Possible jurors. Okay, and what's the name to the right of that upright? Martin Rensel. And is that Martin? And what? And Bill. Okay, Bill Rensel. Yes, ma'am. Number 1 says mom, 2, 3, dad, me, 4, Rach. 4. What's below that? Below Rach? It looks like Sarah crossed out, and the name below that, Dave crossed out, and then. Well, yeah, what's the name below that, Adam? And then it looks like number 9. Yeah, love it. Or number 9 looks like VAC, and then maybe Val, maybe. Number 18, Kim Tessing. Number 19, Lonnie Vernon. Number 20, Karen Vernon. And what about 23, JR? 27, Gary Pochin. Let's move to page 18. What does it say at the top of the page there? Exit team. What's the name below that? Bill Ransel. And there's a phone number, 590-9184, and the name below that, Val Marchbanks. The name below that, Lonnie Vernon. Go ahead and keep reading. Mike McCannis, Gary Brogman, Joe Nichols, J.R. Olson, Scott Walker, Goldman Berry, Bill Barney, Jeremy Sparger, Craig Anderson, Mike Anderson, Paul Harrell, Bill Fenwick, is that Bill Swinson? Bill Fenwick, Bill Swinson, Bill Lathrop. And then it says there to the right, there's a time, 3:30 Friday, courtroom number 202, and below that, Ken Thessing. And there's a phone number, 456-2482. And does that number relate to the number that we looked at on page 7? Do you want to flip back to page 7, please? Is that the same number at the bottom of the page there? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Let's go back to page 18. There's also, next to the list of names on the left, Ken is written next to some of the names. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. And there's a certain stars and check marks next to certain names. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Let's move to the next page, page 19. There's more names. Yes, ma'am. Listed there. Yes, there's a name, Sarah Barney. Do you see that about halfway down? Yes, ma'am. What's the name below that? Dave, Sarah's boyfriend. And then, do you see the name Marie Rensel? Down lower? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay. I'd like to now show you what's marked for identification, Exhibit 199. Would counsel like to inspect? Dooley, yes. Okay, and as for the record, before we started, I indicated to counsel I plan to inquire of certain pages on here, pages 2, 4, 6, 10, 11, 19, 23, 24, 26. You folks should understand that this is part of the process of law, the hallmarks of which are or notice and opportunity to be heard. And defense counsel obviously has a right to notice of what government's going to do and the opportunity to object. So it sometimes takes time for them to find out exactly what is going on to be offered. And so they need to know that so they can object prior to the time it's submitted if an objection is appropriate. So it's part of our system that protects everybody's rights. Mr. Dooley, no objection, Your Honor, but I'll note that the actual documents aren't paginated. It's going to be a mess, but no objection. No objection, all right. 199 may be admitted. Ms. Lamro, Trooper Howell, you've just been handed that Exhibit 199. Do you recognize the items that are contained in that package there? Yes, ma'am. And what are they? Manila folders, or not folders, but notepads. Okay, how many notepads are in there? 4. And did you realize those from the office of Coleman Barney's house? Yes, ma'am. Okay, I'd like to direct your attention to page 2. There's one of the booklets that you see. Yes, ma'am. Okay, at the top of the page, what does it say? Commissioned August 11th. And there's a list of names under Commissioned August 11th. Yes, ma'am. Do you see Bill Barney's name? Yes, ma'am. Val Marchbanks? Yes, ma'am. And J.R. Olson? Yes, ma'am. There's a phone number to the left of J.R. Olson's name, 982-2151, and there's a number of prospectives listed. Yes, ma'am. I'd like to turn to the next page. Go ahead and read that, please. 699-79221. It says Sunny Cell, PR Community Outreach, At Least Empathy, #1 Public Reach Out Campaign. And on the left-hand side, there's something written sideways. Are you able to read that? 2 approaches. Approaches if there is a breakdown. Okay, what is it's a high-profile display of a defense of family, community. 2 approaches if things break down. If we have total breakdown, #1, show of presence by showing up in street corners, all geared up to deter anyone who would have ideas of mischief. And what is stealth approach? Just go and take care of business. Super high speed, lightweight, and quiet. Need new incomers to fill out skill and background info so we can eventually pull them out of their initial teams and set up special teams. Miss Lamro, let's move to the next page. What does that say? 5-man teams, 4 privates, and 1 corporal. Okay, go ahead and read the next paragraph. Need to get new guys actively immediately so as not to lose them. Get them involved while their fire and spirit is fresh, and encourage them to have their wives to get to know each other and involved with each other. And then there's a list of new recruit activity. Yes, ma'am. What are those items? Range, paintball, weekly contact, monthly meeting of either 5 or 15 guys and understand matters of law, upcoming events, Equinox Marathon, September 18th, 2010, Saturday, aid station. Okay. Miss Lamro, let's move on to page 6. What does the top of that page say? Invited to commissioning so far, and there's a lot of names. Yes, ma'am. How many names are listed? It looks like 16. Let's move to page 8. Can you tell us what it is? It looks like a drawing. Can you read what it says in the box at the bottom of the page? We the people, and then there's an arrow down. Miss Lamro, can you rotate that paper? Are you able to to do that? Okay, so there's an arrow down, U.S. Incorporated, then Strawman, and then IRS, and then it says versus. Yes, ma'am. And it goes to the right. There's some other symbols there. Yes, ma'am. Let's go to page 10. And what does it say at the top of the page there? Thursday 18, KJMP testimony of Schaefer, Marty, and Ken. And then it says below that the huddle, #1, uniform inspection. Go ahead and read the list of numbers there. Security detail for KJNP, King Jesus North Pole. Thursday, 4-man team. Everyone call friends and everyone at the courthouse. Ringleaders for in the courtroom with objection, shock, like all. 5, get guys scripted one-liners about how the Alaska court system is a fraud. 6, people to bail us out, ? Or not. Get building scheduled for big meeting prior to court. Get money for advertisement. 23rd at 3 p.m. court date. And is there number 7 there written sideways? Yeah, keyword to get up and walk out with Schaefer. Okay, Miss Lamro, let's turn to the next page. What does that say? Coleman, call 8 p.m. guys for Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Denny's Huddle. At court, 2 guys in uniform close to Schaefer at court, bring cameras. Okay, I'd like to move to another one of the booklets in the package there, and it's 19 of our exhibit. And what's the title there? Parable of the Duck Hunt. Go ahead and read that, please. Complaining about your life or the situation our country is in, and without action, it's like going duck hunting with the blanks. Right? Will be a lot of noise, but the effect is pointless. Now is the time. Today is the day. Today is the day. This is the place, and you are the one. Life. Make it count. Miss Lamro, go to page 23. What's the top of that say? Jury training call. And there's a date and a phone number listed. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. And it says meeting to fill out sovereign papers. Yes, ma'am. And a date also. Yes. And it's indicated a place. Yes. What's the place? Denny's back conference room. And then what's it say below that? Schaefer's trial, Sunday 6, Denny's back conference room. Let's move to the next page. Now, does this writing appear to be different from the writing we've looked at on previous pages? Yes, ma'am. What does it say? Schaefer's court hearing case was today. Do you want me to go ahead to read it? The judge put out a warrant for his arrest for not showing up. The state asked for $1,000 bail fee and not be released with bail until after an appearance in court. The judge granted this, but changed bail to $7,500. Schaefer judge needs stuff out of your binder. Make copy, leave somewhere, but let me know where you left it or have someone get it to me. Okay, I want to now switch to one of the bigger tablets that was in the package there, and it's page 26 of our exhibit. Are you able to read the left-hand side of that? The gear, load bearing, and what does it say next to that? Multicam and OD green. And above that, what does it say? Light infantry tactics for small teams. And then what is it? Guns below that, yes. Go ahead and read that. Practice loading AR-15, platform or standardizing best mags are DMAGs by Magpul. Can get a ProTech. Is ProTech the same receipt that we just saw? Yes, ma'am. Okay, keep going. Physical fitness, 20% improvement, light infantry tactics. Every time we get together, we will discuss chapter out of that book, chapter 4. I'd now like to show what's been marked for identification at Exhibit 194. Ms. Lamoureux, do counsel want an opportunity to inspect that? Yes, I object to this exhibit, or at least portions of it. I think there's been oversight by the government, and I'm sure they'll agree. Hang on a minute. Your Honor, we'd like to take a break to confer. Maybe we could go into something else, or which is, Ms. Lamoureux, yes, sure, we can go to the court. Let's do that. We've marked Exhibit 201. Does counsel have any objections to that one? I have to remember what it was. No objection to that. Has 201 been identified by a witness? No, I can do that. I didn't know if counsel wanted to inspect the original. I can bring it to the witness. Maybe going on isn't saving any time. I can inquire of a different topic. Well, if this is going to take some time, I'd rather do it outside of the jury's time if possible. I have no objection. Okay, I'd like to show the witness what's been marked for identification as Exhibit 201. Okay, is there any objection to that exhibit? No, now, no objection. No objection. All right, 201 may be admitted. Ms. Lamoureux, trooper holler. Do you recognize those items? Yes, ma'am. If you could go ahead and take them out of the package, can you generally describe what those items are? They're an Alaska Peacemakers Militia. It looks like a manual, some invoice sheets, and then DVDs and videos. Do you seize those from the office at Coleman Barney's house? Yes, ma'am, I did. And you seized a number of documents, is that right? Yes. And other electronic media, correct? Those aren't the only CDs that you seized from the office, correct? Let me go ahead and turn to page 20 of Exhibit 201. Is that one of the invoices you just referenced? Yes, ma'am. That's where a number of invoices, is that right? Yes, ma'am. How many? I believe there are 4. Okay, what is the invoice coming from? Coming from Close Combat Training. That's the U.S. Consumer Products. Yes, ma'am. It's Coatesville, Pennsylvania. Yes, ma'am. And what is it being shipped to? Coleman Barney, and the date 5/14/10. And the description for this one is scientific self-defense. And are there other descriptions on those other pages of invoices? Yes. Can you go ahead and show the first one, the jury, the CDs that you have there? What's the first one? The one we looked at as is the scientific self-defense. Can you open that up? What's it say? There's scientific self-defense, volume 1, volume 2. There's a volume 3, and then another DVD in the back of talks about basic brutality. Okay, let's move to the next CD. Do you want to hold that up for the jury, please? What is that one? It states escape combatives. And if you open it up, 4 DVDs. And what's the next one that you have there? This one says Accelerated Battlefield Combatives, and what company is that from? Close Combat Training. Okay, if you'd hold up that for the jury, please. And there's how many CDs in there? 4 DVDs. Okay, let's turn now to that manual. Can you hold up the manual for the jury again, please? And can you read the title of that manual in the front page, the very first page, the cover sheet? The cover sheet, Defend All Aggression on Alaska Peacemakers Militia. No fluff training manual. No fluff, yes, ma'am. Okay. Let's go to page 3, Exhibit 201. Let's go to page 2. Do you see that there's an initials at the top? Yes, ma'am. C. Barney. And that's what's reflected on the original there? Yes, ma'am. Okay. If we go to page 6, Exhibit 201, to try page 5, counsel, it appears our copies and our binders are on page off from what we have in here in our system. What does that say at the top? Structure and leadership. Section 2, Section 2. Okay, what is in the structure of the Alaska Peacemakers Militia? What does it say there? TUCD? It stands for Team, Unit, Company, Division. And what? 5 men form a team, and 3 teams of 5 form a unit. 2 units of 15 form a company. 2 companies of 30 form a division. And there's some qualifications listed below that. Yes, ma'am. What are the qualifications? There are 4 qualifications to be an APM. Be male. Number 2, make confession. Number 3, have gear. Number 4, show up or be excused. And then what does it say below that? To be accepted into APM, you need a recommendation from a member and an interview with your potential commanding officer. And then there's a section on following orders. APM is a voluntary association. You must follow orders and in turn or return in your uniform. Okay. Ms. Lamoureux, let's move to the next page. What's the section title? Tactical Movement, Section 3, Counting on Hands. And there's a section on hand signals with some demonstrations, some signals. Yes, ma'am. And if we go to the next page, there are more hand signals. Yes, ma'am. There's one for tear gas at the bottom left. Yes, ma'am. There's one for sniper on the bottom right. Yes. And let's go to the next page. And these more hand signals. Yes, ma'am. There's a signal for regroup. Yes, ma'am. There's a signal for down, for example. Yes. Let's go to the next page. What's that section titled? Voice commands. Okay, so they've got voice commands for certain with words that are listed: moving, move, rolling, for example. Yeah. Psych and team job descriptions. Yes, ma'am. We don't go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and read those descriptions? Leader calls out commands. Full auto guy pins enemy down. Grenadier helps pin enemy down. Rifleman move in on enemy to kill. Sniper cover and long shots. And then there's a section on patrolling formations. Yes, ma'am. What's the first line say? 360 got your back. Let's move to the next page. And those more patrolling formations. Yes, ma'am. And it describes firing wedge, firing in all directions. Yes. It says that what about the patrolling maneuver section? Yes, ma'am. Traveling overwatch, move out and look out, bounding overwatch and road crossings. Miss Lamoureux, let's go to the next page. What's the section titled? Tactical Rifle Section 4. And there are some shooting positions there. Yes, ma'am. Prone, kneeling, standing. And then there's a section on speed reloading. Yes, ma'am. What does it say there? Draw full magazine and hold it against the base of mag that it is in and gun in Form L. Release empty mag, rotate 90 degrees, insert full mag, stow empty mag, repeat. And what's it say below the photos there? You should be able to do this fast with eyes shut. Miss Lamoureux, let's go to the next page. Actually, I'm sorry, can we go back? Can you go ahead and read the malfunction drills? Sports stands for slap mag, pull, charge handle, observe chamber, release bolt, tap, forward, assist, shoot. Okay, let's go to the next page. And then it says, or tap ring back, tap magazine, rack the bolt, bang. Remember, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And then there's a section on marksmanship. Yes, ma'am. And that first section is called sight adjustment. Yes, go ahead and just read the first sentence, please. The sight system of an AR-15 rifle consists of square front sight post and aperture type rear sight. The front sight is adjustable for elevation and the rear sight is adjustable for both windage and elevation. The rear sight must be lubricated and extra clean. Okay, so it's talking about the sight adjustment for an AR-15 rifle. Yes, ma'am. Okay, there's a section on rear sight and section on front sight. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Let's go to the next page. There's a section on sighting and aiming. Yes, ma'am. Okay, go ahead and read the first paragraph there. In sighting and aiming, the shooter is concerned with correctly pointing the rifle so the bullet will hit the target when fired. To do this, the shooter must have the rear sight, the front sight blade, and target or aiming point in their proper relationship. This relationship is known as sight picture. Sight picture involves two elements, sight alignment or aiming point. And there's descriptions for sight alignment, aiming point, and sight picture and method of sight alignment. Yes, ma'am. Let's go to the next page. There's a section on the right called trigger control. Yes, ma'am. And what's the first paragraph say? Trigger control is the skillful manipulation of the trigger, causing the rifle to fire without disturbing the alignment of the rifle with respect to the target. And then there's a section on initial sight setting. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. And again, that's referring to the AR-15 rifle. Yes, ma'am. Let's go to the next page. There's more information about sighting, right? Yes, ma'am. And then there's a section titled zeroing. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead and read the first paragraph. To understand the principles of zeroing, you should have a basic knowledge of the relationship between the path to the bullet in flight and the line of sight in flight. A bullet does not follow a straight line but travels in a curve or arc, which is called a trajectory. The maximum height of a bullet's trajectory depends on the range of the target. The greater the distance a bullet travels before impact, the higher it must travel in its trajectory. Okay, that's page 51, and we'll take a break. All right, picking up with page 51. Hold on just. Okay, and then there's a section on elements of zeroing. Yes, ma'am. Okay, Miss Lamoureux. Your Honor, at this point I would like to go back to Exhibit 194. Traverso, excuse me, as far as this exhibit is concerned, Your Honor, I'd like the first page to be read because she excluded that, and that's part of the manual. We're not, if you're going to present the whole manual as evidence, then you have to do the first page. I think that's appropriate for cross-examination, counsel. All right. And 192 is the one that's going to take us some time. Lamoureux, 194, Your Honor. Okay, 194, all right. We'll take our morning break, folks. We'll leave your materials, take a break, and hopefully it won't take too long. All rise. This matter stands in brief recess. As much of this as possible, do outside of the jury's time. I don't know what you're going to be doing about creating exhibits. They were all provided. Try it and do it another during the jury's time if you can. Ms. Lamoureux, Your Honor, these exhibits were provided to the defense counsel. While the documents themselves have been made available and they have been reviewed for a long time ago, we provided them with another set. Court, yeah. Lamoureux, over. I understand that. Okay, but I think what you're offering now, they want to be sure it's what they know about. That's fine. So, yeah, off record. All rise. This court is in session. Please be seated. Okay, are we ready to proceed now? Your Honor, we have conferred and we have culled some pages out of the proposed exhibit. out of the original documents. There are still a couple of documents which defense counsel are objecting to. Do you want me to hear those objections before the offer? Traverso, yes. All right. As to there's an affidavit of Wendy Williams, who is a social worker with OCS. And where is that? Page 41. What exhibit number? I'm sorry, 194041. Okay. Traverso, maybe the court ought to read it first. Yeah, let me read it. And if I may, Your Honor, unfortunately, when we copied the original, it wasn't copied in color, and the original affidavit has the name Wendy Williams highlighted on the original. And just so the court knows, we're only offering pages 1 and 3, and we didn't intend to offer page 2 of the affidavit, so it would just be all right. Let me read it. Would you all quit talking so I can read? Miss Hayden, sorry, the court. Okay. Thank you. In paragraph 3, Your Honor, it gets into details of the DV case. Yeah, it looks like rank hearsay to me. I don't know what the purpose. Traverso, well, it's the court of the offer is it's not only the hearsay, but it certainly isn't probative of anything in this case. The only thing I would said in my opening was that there was a DV case that was the linchpin for why OCS needed to investigate. That's it. I didn't get into any details of the offense, so it has no probative value at all. It is hearsay, and if Miss Williams is going to be witness later on, which I understand she is, I certainly don't want this to be corroborative of anything that she's saying. I don't want what she is going to testify to, actually, but it certainly is. Just for the record, the word probative means having the quality or function of proving or demonstrating something, affording proof or evidence. Miss Lamro, but it certainly is going to be about OCS and the Coxes. Lamro, Your Honor, these documents were found in the Coleman Barney's office, and we're not offering the affidavit for the truth of the matter asserted. We're offering it to show the relationship between Schaefer Cox and Coleman Barney, to show their intent. Schaefer Cox's intent specifically with regard to Wendy Williams. The name is highlighted there. Schaefer Cox links the OCS investigation to the federal plot to kill him. It's all part of his motive and intent in this case. The court, well, for now, have it identified. You're getting into a serious 403 issue here. This is hearsay, and maybe it should come up at some point, but I would prefer it be tied up a lot closer than what we have now before we admit it. All right, anything else? I have an objection to 2 pages of the documents that the government intends to introduce, and those are exhibits 194, page 52 through 53. It purports to be an affidavit signed by Lonnie Vernon, and my objections are authentication, foundation, confrontation, hearsay, and relevance. The court, that objection is overruled, or will be when the offer is made. All right, are we ready at long last? Yes, Your Honor. The court, when people tell me thank you for your patience, my reaction is there is no patience. You can thank me for waiting impatiently. Anyway, let's bring in the jury in. I hope we can do most of that kind of stuff outside the jury hours now, counsel. What were the pages we were discussing first? Miss Lamro, the first pages, Your Honor, are pages 41, 43. Okay, thank you. Jury in at 10:43. Okay, folks, please be seated, and I'm sorry to keep you waiting. But we were making, he was leaning forward. I thought there was an empty seat there. Anyway, we're making progress while you were waiting, and so we will now proceed. Miss Lamro. Lamro, thank you. I will show the witness what has been identified in Government Exhibit 194. Direct examination continued. Miss Lamro, Trooper Howell, do you recognize the items that are continued in Exhibit 194? Yes, ma'am. And have you reviewed them prior to today? Yes. And are they the items you seized from Coleman Barney's office? Yes, ma'am. Are all of the documents that are just some of the documents that you seized in there? There are a few. At this point, the government would offer Exhibit 194, specifically 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10, 15, 50, all the way up to 102, goes to 181, and 182. Any objections? No objection, no objection. Those pages of Exhibit 194 may be admitted. Now, I don't know do you plan to remark those pages out of the stuff? Your Honor, currently the originals that Trooper Howell has with her include all of those pages with the addition of 2 pages, which I did not testify. They are pages 41 and 43. Those pages are still in the originals, but I'm not offering them at the time. Are you offering the other pages that you didn't just list? No, those pages have been culled, and they're not included. They're already out of the exhibit, out of the original. Yeah, all right, yes, go ahead. Miss Lamro, and if you could please show the Exhibit 194, page 1, and if you could look, Trooper Howell, do you have the original of that document there? Yes, ma'am. If you could show it to the juries. So yours is the original with the ink signatures? Yes, ma'am. And some of the signatures reflected on there are Kenneth Thiesing, is that right? Yes, ma'am. Coleman Lee, yes, ma'am. Jerry Raymond, JR, on the right-hand side, yes, ma'am. Bill Lee and May Lynn down below that, yes, ma'am. And Bill Rensel, also in the lower left, yes, ma'am. Okay, Miss Lamro. Let's move on to page 2. Now, do you also have the original of that page? Yes, ma'am. And what is the title at the top? Jury sign-in. And what is the date? January 16, 2010. And who's juror number 6? J.R. Olson. And who is juror number 9? Coleman Lee. And 12 and 13? Lonnie and Karen Louise. Number 14, Kenneth Thiesing. And number 16, Bill Rensel. Let's turn to page 3, please. Is that the back side of the page? Yes, ma'am. Let's go to page 4. Do you have the original package up there with you? Yes, ma'am. And who is it? What does the label reflect it's coming from? The Office of the Clerk, Alaska Court System, and it's addressed to Francis August Schaefer Cox, and the postmark date is December 17, 2010. If you could pull out of the package the documents inside of that envelope, please. If you could go to page 6, please. Do you see that document in the envelope? Yes, I do. And is that how you found it when you seized it? Yes, ma'am. What does the very top of the line of that document say? In the Alaska Court System, DBA, District Court for the State of Alaska, and the case caption of State of Alaska Plaintiff versus Schaefer Cox Sovereign. And there's a couple of case numbers referenced there. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. And it's titled Proof of Service. Yes, ma'am. Can you go ahead and read the first sentence there? I certify under penalty of bearing false witness that on 12/15/10 AD, I hand delivered a copy of the following documents to the court clerk for distribution to all parties, to wit: Office of District Court Judge Johnny Kavar, Chief Executive Officer of the Alaska Court System Alex Krenar. Office of the District Court Clerk, unknown, refused to disclose upon request. Chief of Police, Chief of Office of Police, City of Fairbanks, Alaska agents and assigns. Office of Commission of Public Safety, State of Alaska, Office of District Attorney or assistants and assigns all parties letters, rogatory, writ of mandus, writ of coram nobis, restraining order from the Office of Judge, challenge of jurisdiction, appointment as Command-in-Chief, indiscernible notice and demand. And the date is December 15, 2010. And can you read the name above the signature line, Kenneth Thiesing? There's a name referenced in the paragraph, Jane Kuvar. Yes, ma'am. Do you know who that is, Judge? She's a judge in the Fairbanks Court System. Let's move on to the next page, page 7. The top, what's the top line say? Letters rogatory. And on the left, there's a name, Francis August Schaefer Cox. Yes, ma'am. And below that, it says real sovereign man, real party and interest, a plaintiff. Versus who? Foreign private corporate agents, Jane Kuvar, masquerading as a district court judge, Alex Krenar, Chief Executive Officer, Alaska Court System, District Court Clerk, name unknown, refused to disclose upon request, Chief of Police, City of Fairbanks, Alaska agents and assigns, Commissioner of Public Safety, State of Alaska, Office of the District Attorney and assistants concerned, whose names are otherwise unknown and involved, whose names are otherwise unknown defendants. And then in the lower paragraph there's a date. It says in the first paragraph at the bottom, it says hearing and then trial, later date. Trial is set for 6 p.m. on the 16th day of January 2011, and that's the 1929 Airport Way, Fairbanks, Alaska. Yes, ma'am. Miss Lemerle, let's go to the next page, page 8. There's a paragraph for facts. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. And one for reciprocity. Yes, ma'am. And there's a signature. Yes, ma'am. And do you recognize any of those seals down low? No. Miss Lemerle, let's go to the next page. Do you recognize that judge name? No. Lemerle, let's go to page 9. Now for the first sentence starts in the, what does it say there in the Supreme Court of the Judicial Districts of tens, fifties, hundreds, and thousands for the Western Union of Assemblies of the several counties at large for the Union of State of the United States of America. Do you recognize the flag in the upper right-hand corner? No, ma'am. Or the seal on the left? No. Then in the second paragraph it says, in the cause of Francis August Schaefer Cox, it says against who? The de facto bankrupt administrative corporate agency, State of Alaska. Do you recognize any of the names in that paragraph? Jane Kuvar. That's the judge you referenced. Yes, ma'am. Miss Lemerle, let's go to the next page. It says that you shall also produce for examination what? Can you read the line? Number 1, a certified true and correct copy of your oath of office. And then number 2, a certified copy of your bond to hold and fill said public office signed and certified by your bonding agencies. And then again, there's a signature of it, says judge, and it says David Bartels. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. And there's an address there in Big Lake. Yes, ma'am. Miss Lemerle, let's go to page 10. Oh, my apologies. Let's go to page 14. This document, it says directed to. A little ways down this page, it says directed to. Yes, ma'am. What did it say? Any and all agents of the corporate entity and assigns DBA as of Alaska, State of Juneau, Alaska. What is Duns? What's Duns? Is that right? DU? Okay, yes, ma'am. And it says what? Fairbanks City Government, Alaska Court System, Private Corporation, Duns, State of Alaska, Department of Public Safety, Juneau, Alaska, City of Fairbanks Police Department, for instant case number 4FA 10993, 4FA 10762, consolidated. Let's go to the next page. Who is that title? Restraining order. And it's, what's the first line say? The order is issued forth for the following reasons. Okay, if you could go ahead and read the first paragraph. It has come to the attention of this justice that agent officers of your foreign administrative bankrupt, corrupt, de facto entities have invaded the republic under color of law with acts of war, under arms, with threats of violence, attempted seizure of the man Francis August Schaefer Cox without proper due process of law, Alaska criminal rules of proceeding notwithstanding, under an administrative appearance bond, on a commercial bill of exchange, which does not apply to the man Francis August Schaefer Cox. What does paragraph 2 say? These acts are specifically directed at Francis August Schaefer Cox, whom by your error you presume to be some indiscernible procedural phantom strawman corporate person legal fiction who in reality is a living breathing man, a private civilian upon the land on the interior region, Republic State, Alaska, 1867 AD, who is not engaged in commerce. Paragraph 3. From this point in time forward to the resolution of this case conflict by this juror forum, your agent officer shall cease any further action under color of law, acts of war under force or violence, threats of violence, attempts at seizure, extortion, intent to do violence or bodily harm by any and all of your agent officers. They each and all shall maintain a distance of 1,000 feet from the man Francis August Schaefer Cox. And number 4, a copy of this order shall be served upon all parties named above and copy retained to the man Francis August Schaefer Cox. Let's go to the next page. What does paragraph 5 say? Note for show cause hearing in Alaska, January 16th, 6 p.m., 1929, Airport Road, Fairbanks, Alaska. What's the date? The 14th of February or December 2010 again. And there it says sovereign by the signature there. Yes, ma'am. And there's other seals there. Yes, ma'am. Do you recognize them? No. For the record, not for the jury to see, though. I would like the record to reflect the trooper Hal has pages 41 and 43 of the exhibit with her and those. Okay, we're on page 68. What's striking me as a bit humorous is when the government issues some kind of search warrant or arrest warrant for, Francis August Schaefer Cox, that like his militia is writing all this stuff back saying we consider you like entering the Republic of Alaska under color of law, and that you're a foreign power and that you've implemented acts of war against the Republic, and we're demanding that you stay 1,000 feet away from Francis August Schaefer Cox. It's like the government's got all this crap paperwork, and the militia made all their crap paperwork too. So you got two organizations sending crap paperwork to each other. I don't know why that strikes me as funny, but anyway, I got a terrible sense of humor, folks. Items that she found in the office would like to move now to page 50. Do you recognize that? Yes, ma'am. And the highlighting there that was included in the original. Yes, ma'am. And the words that are highlighted, State Trooper, and there's another name, Tiffany Neer, and then below that, other OCS personnel. Let's move to page 51. There's another highlighted there, William Tendusky. Do you know who that is, Commissioner? And is that highlighting in the original there? Yes, ma'am. What that was? It was like that when you sees it. Yes, ma'am. Let's go to page 52. What does the top of that line say? Affidavit. And is there a date, May 7, 2010? And what's the name there? Personally appeared, Lonnie Burton. And it indicates on paragraph 1 what. Do you want me to read it just as I, the undersigned of sound mind, lawful agent of my own free will, now state and I have known Schaefer Cox family for a period of 16 months? Okay, Miss Lamron, let's move on to the next page. What? Oh, see the page number at the top, I guess. Yes, page 53 of Exhibit 194. And there's a name there, Lonnie Burton, with an address, 10314 Old Valdez Trail, Salcha. Where's that? It's a little ways past North Pole. I couldn't give you miles. And what's the date? March 7, 2010. Let's move to page 98 of Exhibit 194. What was this document included in the items you seized from the office? Yes, ma'am. And in the first, I guess it's the second paragraph when it says Francis August Schaefer Cox. Do you see that? And it says versus see the attached. Yes, ma'am. What does it say? See attached what? Sheet of all defendants, third-party defendants, several severely and individually all. And then what's the title below? Affidavit of negative vermin. Opportunity to cure and counterclaim. And then below that it says, as to count 1, yes. Miss Lamoureux, let's move to the page 99, next page. There's a count 2 there. Yes, what does that say? On or about March 30th, 2010, Office of Child Services from the state of Alaska trespassed his property and demanded to inspect his son in violation of the First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, Seventh Amendment, Eighth Amendment, Ninth Amendment, Tenth Amendment. They returned again later that day and again on April the 2nd. This is harassment, stalking, trespassing, attempted kidnapping. I believe that there is no evidence to the contrary. Neither I nor my natural son have contract with the corporation, and neither I or my natural son are 14th Amendment citizen. This is abuse of power, conspiracy, collusion, racketeering, denial of due process, extortion, obstruction of justice, and dishonor in the commerce, etc. I believe there is no evidence to the contrary. And then there's a count 3, is that right? Yes, ma'am. And then it's to count 4, Miss Lamoureux. If we could have the page again. Okay, great. If you could go ahead and read count 4. Agency officials and Alaska State Troopers conspired to create fraudulent criminal charges against Francis Schaefer August Cox, a secured party creditor, sovereign man on the land. I have never now, nor I have ever been under jurisdiction of the corporation, nor do I consent to give any statutes the force of law by contracting with the de facto corporate government, and if third-party defendants have any lawfully documented evidence to the contrary, let them come forth now on or for the official record, and let the district attorney certify their evidence under their unlimited commercial liability while under oath and enter penalties of the law, including perjury. Failure to continue this action without proof of their claim is an abuse of process, an abuse of power, coercion, conspiracy, racketeering, denial of due process, extortion, fraud, theft, dishonor in commerce, etc. I believe there is no evidence to the contrary. Ms. Lamoureux, let's move to the next page, page 100. It says the top of their opportunity to cure. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. If you could read the first two items there, dismiss any and all claims against third-party plaintiffs with prejudice, pay the third party. I'm sorry, would you mind reading the introductory sentence there? The several individual third-party defendants have 14 calendar days to cure their dishonor by a combination of the following, as determined by the secured party creditor, dismiss any and all claims against the third-party plaintiff with prejudice, pay the third-party plaintiff $250,000. Let's jump back to page 98, please. In the top section, their name, Francis August Schaefer Cox, there's a comma there. What does it say? In the first paragraph where it says Francis August Schaefer Cox, third-party plaintiff. Okay, so third-party plaintiff. Ms. Lamoureux, let's go back to page 100. If you could just expand the top part of the page, please. Now let's go back to the number 3. Expunge from the record all past judgments, proceedings, allegations, liabilities, etc. against secured party creditor. Number 4. Pay all damages as indicated by the counterclaim contained herein with real money. Surrender any and all public hazard bonds, other bonds, insurance policies, CAFR funds, 801k funds, personal properties, land, real estate, etc. as needed to satisfy the counterclaim herein. And number 5. In addition to the monetary penalties in this counterclaim. All right, we'll continue, page 74. In addition to the monetary penalties, this counterclaim, all defendants must confess in public UCC Department of Human Resources regarding offices of the United States Corporation, and several states own all citizens of the 14th Amendment, including children who are traded daily. Okay, Ms. Lamoureux, if we can have the full page again, then the lower section reads what court? Court negative averment criminal case, and the following damages have been assessed against you should you fail to meet the requirements as provided in the opportunity to cure contained therein. Okay, and then it has a dollar amount there, $2 million, and that's per third-party defendant per count, per violation, per occurrence. And the same for number 2, yes ma'am. Let's move on to the next page, which is page 101. This is number 3 through 16 there, yes ma'am, and there is additional items of $2 million for each one. Yes ma'am. Ms. Lamoureux, let's go to the next page, page 102. Then at the top, page 17 says, failure to pay. Counterclaim is full within 30 calendar days of default and as contained therein. Lamoureux, let's go to the next page 102. Then at the top, 17 says failure to pay. Counterclaim is full within 30 calendar days of claim. 30 calendar days of default as contained herein. And what's it say about interest there? $1 million per month, and interest 1.5% per month compounded daily for the first 30 days from the date of default. And let's read paragraph 20, please. Defendants must expunge from the record all past judgments, proceedings, allegations, liability, etc. against the secured party creditor. And then if you could, let's see what we got on page 100. If you... Sorry. If you go back to page 100, paragraph 1 says there's $2 million, and 2 is $2 million. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Okay, now we showed you on page 101 there's all $2 million. Yes, ma'am. And so that's per count, per violation, per occurrence, right? Yes, ma'am. So we're at number 16. So 16 times 2 is 16 times 32 million. Okay, thank you. On page 102 at the bottom there, that's what you see, the signature of Francis August Schaefer Cox, secured party creditor, and it's dated May 18, 2010. Go to page 104, please. Again, it says at the same title about the affidavit. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. At the very top, it says attached sheet. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. What's it say? Attached sheet and all defendants, third-party defendants, several severely and individually and all. And then there's a list of 11 names. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. What's the first names? Wendy Williams, Children's Services Specialist 2. Do you know who that is? I do. Who is she? An Office of Children's Services worker. What's the name on number 2? Yvonne Hill, Supervisor, Social Work. Do you know who she is? Yes, she's a supervisor, I believe, for Wendy. Also at the Office of Children's Services. Yes, ma'am. Do you recognize any of the other names on that list? Sarah Alden. Hold on just a second. Sarah Alden is again with the Office of Children's Services. Colleen Turner is, I believe, the head of Fairbanks Regional Office in the Northern Region of OCS. I don't know the other names. Okay, if we're finished with the documents that were in the package, if you took them out, you can go ahead and put them back in. We're going to move to page 139 of Exhibit 194. Do you have the envelope up there with you? Yes, ma'am. Who is it addressed to? Wendy Williams. And what's it say above her name? Public Servant, Children's Services, and that's in Fairbanks. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Do you recognize that address? No. What's the return address label? Unclaimed. Okay. And then for the address, what does it show? The return in the upper left-hand corner, the sender label, 1618 Senior Road, Fairbanks, Alaska 99709. Is there a postmark date on the envelope? Yes, ma'am. What is it? June 2nd, 2010. If we go to page 140, please. If you want to take out the documents of that envelope, does it reflect what you see on the screen? Yes, ma'am. The certification it says certification of mailing. Is that right? Yes. And there's 4 items listed. Yes. The affidavit of notary presentment, affidavit of negative averment, opportunity to cure a counterclaim in the matter of Seth Cox under 18 years of age. And then there, number 3 is attachment of third-party defendants. Number 4, UCC financing statement, Francis Schaefer, August Cox. Okay, Ms. Lamro, if we go to the next page, please, does that appear to be the same affidavit that we were just looking at? Yes, Ms. Lamro. If we go to the next page again, does that appear to be the same? Yes, ma'am. And the next page, does that appear to be the same? Yes. And the next page, does that appear to be the same? Yes. And if we could jump to page 140, is that attached to the document? Yes. And the names are listed there? Yes. Some of the people you've already talked about, right? Yes, ma'am. Let's go and you can put those documents back in the envelope and we'll move on to the next one. If you could pull up 182, please. Do you have the envelope with you there? I do. And is it something that you seized from Coleman Varden's office? Yes. And who is it addressed to? Yvonne Hill. And who is she again? She is the manager, the supervisor for Wendy Williams at OCS. Office of Children's Services, yes, ma'am. And what is the return, the sender label? Who is it coming from? 1618 Scenic Loop, Fairbanks, Alaska 99709. And is there a postmark date, June 2nd, 2010? If you could go to the next page, if you want to pull the documents out of the envelope, the certification of mailing again, and yes, and it looks like the same as the one we just looked at, yes, ma'am. Okay, and if we were just jump to page 191, does that look like the same list of names that we saw in the last? And yes, ma'am. And you have the opportunity to review all the documents in the envelope, yes, and did it appear the same as the ones in the envelope? Yes, addressed to Wendy Williams and with the affidavit of negative averment, yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Lamro. Madam Clerk, if we could have the lights, please. Now, if you had the first of the jury that your current assignment is to work with child abuse investigations, is that right? Yes. Do you happen to know if the troopers respond to a domestic violence situation with the child present? Well, anytime the troopers respond to any kind of a domestic violence call and there are troopers or children in the house, when we finish the call, we have to make a report to OCS. So it's an automatic referral to the Office of Children's Services, yes, ma'am. And that's part of the Alaska State Troopers policy, yes. And what if there are just argument between people? Would that require an automatic referral to the Office of Children's Services? And anytime we respond to a call of domestic violence, even if there were just an argument, or is there discretion, then there may be discretion, but it's general we make a report. And you work with the OCS in your current role, yes, ma'am. I have no other questions for this witness. All right. Good morning. Mr. Traverso, cross-examination. Good morning. Hello. I should get close here. Can you refer to the APM Manual 201? Sean, can I have you pull that up? Is that the Alaska Peacemakers Militia Manual? That is right there. Yes, sir. Can you open up page 1, please? Yes, sir. What's it say? Where it says introduction? Yes. Big ideas, actually. Could you read that page as I understand it? It has an oath. Could you read the introduction first and then read the oath underneath it where it says the confession and an oath? Do you want it on a big screen, Mr. Traverso? It's on the big screen, Your Honor. Oh, now it is. I'm sorry. Mr. Traverso, if you are able to defend your individual liberty effectively these days, you will need others who are willing and able to come to your aid, join with you in a necessary use of force. This will be far easier to do if we all have in common skill at arms and some of the basic conduct techniques. The objective of this training is to give regular people the basic combat skill and organizational structure needed to work together to defeat an aggressor who threatens one or all of us. Before God and men, for the sake of my conscience and for the safety of my family, I will defend and observe the principles of individual liberty embodied in our founding documents by example, persuasion, and force of arms, and assist my neighbors as they do the same, never abandoning another who is fighting to live free. I will demand liberty, destroy tyranny, discern justice, defend all, aggress none, and follow orders to the end, indiscernible upon us to do or not to do something. This is more than just a premise. It is a confession of what is truly in one's heart. It is not about what you have agreed to do. It is a statement about who you are. Thank you, Mr. Traverso. I have no further questions. Mr. Dooley, yes, ma'am. I'm going to approach you real quick, Mr. Dooley. I'm taking this up. Am I showing you defense exhibit? Mr. Dooley, you need a microphone. I'm going to get demoted. I'm showing you defense exhibit CBG, CB for Coleman Barney. Your Honor, I'm not sure that this is relevant object to object. The court, I have no idea what it is, so I can't rule on that on your objection. It's Mr. Dooley's exhibit. I'm not sure what it is either. The court, well, he may be able to identify it, and you'll have the opportunity to see it before I roll on an offer if it's offered by Mr. Dooley. First off, it's an empty box, correct? Appears to be empty. Ma'am, your microphone, please. I didn't get the answer. The box is empty. It's an empty box for 22 rounds, correct? Yes. Winchester brand, yes. And if you look at the upper right here, that box would hold 5,022 rounds, correct? Yes. And earlier you had testified they had 9,750 or so 22 rounds. And objection, Your Honor, I'm not sure that that was the witness's testimony. I don't believe it was actually. But we had testimony that there was 20,000 rounds. I'll represent to you found in the home. I believe that misstates the evidence. I guess we'll have to rely on the jury's collective memory on that point, counsel, by Mr. Dooley, and that about 10,000 rounds were 22 rounds. 5,000 rounds fit in a box like that, and that's my purpose in showing it. It's not quite the, wait a minute, do you have a question for the witness? Dooley, yes. Do you agree that the box would hold 5,000 rounds of 22? 5,000 rounds of 22 bullets according to the box? All right. Mr. Dooley, I move the admission. No objection, Your Honor. All right. It may be admitted. What was the number again, please? It was CBG, Charlie Bravo, Dash Golf. All right, it may be admitted. Mr. Dooley, you've testified to a number of weapons rifles, and they've been admitted. All those rifles are perfectly legal for a citizen who's not a felon to own, correct? Correct. There was, in fact, nothing you testified to. Well, all the bullets are perfectly legal to own. The bullets that I saw in the bag specifically are okay to own. Okay, any bullets that are there any bullets not okay to own? Not that I remember in the area that I searched, right? There's no restriction under the law how many bullets you could have. Not that I'm aware of. And no restriction under the law how many legal rifles or pistols you can have. Again, not that I'm aware of. The documents we've been looking at, nothing illegal about any of those documents, correct? Not that I'm aware of. Okay, you testified about a cell phone that well. You were talking to Rachel Barney at the time you took the set cell phone, right? Right. You took her purse. You emptied out her purse, correct? Yes, sir. And you took from that cell phone, kept it, correct? I believe the cell phone came from her person. I believe she had it in her hand, not the purse. Not that she may have had the purse with her. Okay, something connected to her. All right. Why? We're never supposed to ask why. Why did you seize the cell phone? The warrant allowed for seizure of electronic devices in the residence. It was in the residence. Okay. That the cell phone is legal, correct? Yes. For the record, counsel, you might identify the exhibit number for that cell phone. I can't I can't remember the cell phone number. Not the exhibit number. 200. It's 200, I think. Thanks to my. Now I don't think it is. I believe it's 213. Mr. Dooley, all right, 213. That is 213. Do you have any memory of of that as a cell phone? I believe 213 was a cell phone I may have looked at. Did you arrest Rachel Barney? No, I didn't. All right. Do you know what is meant by the term assault rifle? Not particularly. Thank you. I have no questions for this witness. If you could please pull up Exhibit 201, page 19, if you have the rights, Madam Clerk. Do you recognize that page? Yes. Do you have an APM manual? Yes. Is that the last page, the very back? And what does it say? Live free or die, for death is not the worst of evils. And then there's a flag above it. Right. Do you recognize that flag? No. No other questions for this witness? All right. Thank you, Trooper Howe. You may be excused. Well, all bell, Your Honor. If you'll come up to the witness stand, and if you'll stand, face the jury, and raise your right hand. Albert Bell, plaintiff's witness. The witness I do. Thank you. Please be seated. Direct examination. Scrocky. Sir, could you give your name for the record and spell your last name? My name is Albert Bell, B-E-L-L, and sir, your occupation. I'm an Alaska State Trooper, and you go by investigators. Is that right? That is correct. Okay, I'm to have Agent Sutherland bring up to you a couple of exhibits. If you could do that, please. 221, 279, 221, 222. Scrocker, Investigator Bell, if I could have you look at the exhibits we've placed in front of you, 279, 221, 222. Yes, sir. Have you had an occasion to see those before? Yes, I have. With respect to the black computer tower, there's an exhibit tag and an evidence tag on that. Do you see that? That is correct. And similarly, 221, 222. This is correct also. Do you have occasion to review those before coming into court this morning? Yes, I have. Is your name on those three tags? That is correct. If I could have you, Investigator Bell, turn your attention to March 10th of 2011. Okay, yes, sir, yes, sir. Were you assisting an investigation of that date with the FBI? I was. Did you have an occasion to participate in a search warrant on that date? Yes, I did. And where was the location when you occasioned to assist with the search warrant? It was Old Valdez Trail. It was 10314 Old Valdez Trail. Okay, other agencies there with you in the respect to the searching that residence, that is correct? With respect to Exhibit 279, the computer tower there in front of you, yes, sir. Do you recall seeing that during the course of your search? I do. Where did you see it? There was in the office space in the residence. Okay, did you actually have eyes on it yourself on that date? I did. And what agency sees that tower? I believe the Alaska State Troopers. Okay, all right. Can you look at the tag and see? Yes, I'm looking at it. All right. I was in a seizure. That was in a seizure by your agency. That is correct. Okay, Scrocky, move on for the admission of 279. No objection times 3. It may be admitted. Okay, Investigator Bell, could you see on the evidence tag in terms of where you signed off at the computer, in terms of where it came from you and then to the next person? Yes, I can. Can you tell the jury what that is, please? That is what we call the evidence tag, and the tag basically has David DeGroff. He was the initial investigator who signed for the property, and then the property was signed over to me, and then I signed the property over to evidence, to Fairbanks Evidence, and in Fairbanks and the State Troopers headquarters. Is there a date on that tag that indicates when the transfer took place? That concerning yourself, that's correct, 3/10/2/11. The date on of the search and seizure, that is correct. Okay, if you could just take that and put it down for us, just take it off and stand now. We're done with that. Okay, I'm sorry, thank you. Let's take a look at 221, yes sir, and 222, and as you indicated, your name, seizure on tags of those two items, that is correct. The description of those two items, that's what's in those bags. 2 cell phones. Okay, and you had an occasion to seize those, yes sir. And let me ask you the circumstances and nature of the seizure. When did that happen? This occurred on the 11th of March 2011. So your following day after you seized computer desktop that we just looked at, yes sir. From where did you seize those 2 cell phones? Both of those came from Black Dodge pickup. The license plate was Z206, and that was located in the garage of the Alaska State Trooper. So in Fairbanks, so Donald Tom Zebra, or that's correct, Delta Tango Zulu 206. Oh, I got that wrong, didn't I? Okay, it's okay. Delta Tango Zebra. Okay. Now, sir, do you have occasion to see those 2 phones in the black truck? That is correct. And you saw the seize by the people of your agency. That is correct. Who did you see collect those? Actually, Sergeant Johnson seized those 2 phones off the headboard of the dashboard of the vehicle. All right. And then you obtained them from him. That is correct. Okay, Scrocky, move for the admission of 221. No objection. I'd like to see them, Your Honor, Miss Hayden. I got to tell you, Judge, these have been available for a very long time. Well, for a year, Your Honor, may I have seen, Your Honor, what I may have seen a year ago may not be what's up there right now. Miss Hayden, thank you. All right. Any objection? 221, 222? No, sir. No, sir. No objection. They may be admitted. Exhibits 221, 222. Mr. Scrocky. Investigator Bell, if I could have a look at your 221, sure. Take it out of the bag for me. There's a piece of paper attached to that phone, some sort of writing. That is correct. Could you tell the jury what it is? It's a yellow piece of paper that has a phone number on it and has a yellow at the bottom of the phone. Okay. And what's on the number on the sticker that says yellow? It says 854-1464. If you can put back in the bag for us at 222, if you can read it through the bag, that's fine. Okay, I can. Okay, there's the same yellow. It's another yellow piece of paper with the yellow at the bottom. The phone number is 347-7420. 347-7420. That's correct. 347-7420. Do you occasion to place your name on the tags? Both those phones? Oh, that is correct. Okay. And with respect to I'm sorry, when did you put your name on those tags? The same day on the 11th of March 2011. Thank you. With respect to the phone analysis in this case, did you have occasion to do another analysis of a transfer of another phone at some point during the investigation? That is correct. Do you recall the type of phone that is and what the nature of that phone was? I do. What did you describe the phone and tell the jury what you did? Okay with it. It was an iPhone. I believe it was a 3 Series iPhone, a 3G iPhone. I was given the phone from Investigator Thompson. Investigator Thompson did a forensic extraction on this phone on a system called a Celebrite, and the 2 of us did an examination by means of looking at that computer screen after the information was extracted from the device to the computer system. And then after we did the examination, I transported the phone to Sergeant Dave Wilson of the State Troopers also. All right. When do you recall doing that examination with Mr. Thompson? I believe it was in February 2011. I don't know exactly the same date. Okay, roughly around that time frame. That is correct. All right. And with respect to Exhibit 221, 222, you obtained that from the type of vehicle. I believe it was the Dodge pickup. And did you have occasion to be familiar with the license plate? That is correct. And did you run that license plate? Yes, sir. And it came back to who? Coleman, Barney. Thank you. No questions. No questions. No questions. You may be excused, Trooper Bell. The witness, thank you, sir. The government calls ATF officer Phil Whitley. The court, you'll step inside the witness box and remain standing and face the jury in the courtroom. Raise your right hand and be sworn. Plaintiff sworn. Thank you. Please be seated. Direct examination, Miss Lamoureux. Good morning. Good morning. If you could please state your name for the record and spell your name. My name is Philip Whitley. My last name is spelled W-H-I-T-L-E-Y. And where do you work? I work for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives. Is that? Or ATF. ATF, okay. And what's your title there? I'm an explosives enforcement officer. And where do you work? I work at Seattle, Washington office. What is an explosives enforcement officer? It's a long title for a bomb technician. My primary responsibility with the ATF is to serve as a bomb disposal technician and subject matter expert on explosives issues for the Bureau. Okay, and so what do you do? Well, I render safe and disassemble improvised explosives and incendiary devices, which is my primary task. You said explosive incendiary devices? Answer, explosive and incendiary. I'm sorry. Okay, sometimes I speak a little quickly and I apologize for that. If I get too fast, I'll jump in. Okay, thank you very much. But so explosive and incendiary devices, I render them safe and disassemble them. I also collect and process the evidence from them. In addition, I render determinations under the law. And determination is to say it is a bomb or is not a bomb. It is an explosive or it is not an explosive under the law. So I render those determinations. I also build mock-ups or reconstructions and provide expert testimony to support those determinations in court. And how long have you been an explosive enforcement officer? 7 years. And approximately how many device determinations have you rendered opinions on? For ATF, in excess of 100. You clarified for ATF, are there other ways that you've rendered opinions about explosive devices? There are. I mean, I've been a bomb technician for going on 24 years, starting off my career with the U.S. military, U.S. Army, and in the course of a military bomb technician, we would also render upon legal determinations. We would render determinations on how the device was built, how it functioned for intelligence purposes, like in Iraq and Afghanistan, so that the soldiers in the battlefield would be able to better prepare themselves for what they might encounter. Question: And you've actually been over to Iraq and Afghanistan? I have. I've done a tour of both. Afghanistan with the U.S. Army as a team leader. Then Iraq with the ATF to loan to the U.S. Army, indiscernible, where we took all the post-blast devices that were recovered in the battlefield and analyzed them and reconstructed them to figure out how they worked, and do forensic analysis to lead back to the bomb makers. Question: And so when was the last tour? When was your last tour? I returned from Iraq in February of 2011. So why isn't somebody objecting here as to relevance? Why are they talking about his Iraq tour on a Schaefer Cox trial in Alaska? I returned from Iraq in February of 2011. So, and how long had you been there? Since October of 2010. Okay, so it was about 5 months? Yes. And during that time period, what did you do? I ran the chemical analysis lab. So when the device came in, my shop was responsible for doing the analysis on the residue. If it was metal fragments or parts and pieces, or if it was an intact device, analyzing the intact explosive, so to determine what kind of explosive it was, and if there's any forensic value to it, for example, C4, which is, you hear about it on the movies and whatnot, it's a plastic explosive. Under chemical analysis, we're able to determine that some Iranian manufactured or some U.S. manufactured, and was hugely important from an intelligence point of view to know if the terrorists were being supplied from the Iranians or if they were stealing U.S. supplies and using it against us. So during that tour, can you give an estimate of approximately how many explosive devices you examined? During my tour in Iraq, over 500 devices came through my shop. All right, let's continue and try to get to page 111. Iranian manufactured, some was U.S. manufactured, and that was hugely important from an intelligence point of view to know if the terrorists were being supplied from the Iranians or if they were stealing U.S. supplies and using it against us. So during the tour, can you give an estimate of approximately how many explosive devices were examined? During my tour in Iraq, over 500 devices came through my shop. What are other parts of your job, you said, that you've been put out on loan sometimes to other agencies? You made reference to the fact of your tour. What else? We are often loaned out to other federal and state agencies to utilize our expertise, one of which is the U.S. State Department. We do what's called an anti-terrorism assistance visits, or ATA visits, to embassies around the world, where we help conduct threats assessments and vulnerability assessments at the embassy to ensure our interests are safe and secure. We also work with the local law enforcement of the country to look for ways to improve their ability to investigate a terrorist bombing event. So your job requires you to travel around the country, around the world, to examine explosive devices. That's correct. And you indicated you have a military background. Is that right? I do. Okay, can you describe that? Well, I joined the military in 1988. I did a total of 21 years active and reserve, and I was very lucky to have been a military EOD technician, which is explosive ordnance disposal or bomb technician, which the U.S. Army for my entire 21 years was active and reserve. So I'm pretty lucky because I really enjoyed the profession and I enjoyed the soldiers I got to work with. I retired as a first sergeant from the Washington National Guard Explosive Ordnance Disposal Company. Why is this guy giving his freaking life history on a trial about Schaefer Cox? It doesn't make any sense. They should be objecting to relevance. You said it's the explosive ordnance. Even if he... Listen. Oh, gosh. Explosive Ordnance Disposal Company, or EOD Company. When you say ordnance, what does that mean? Ordnance is a military term used to describe military munitions. For example, everything from bombs from an aircraft to rockets to artillery projectiles to grenades and to all types of military munitions are classified as ordnance. So, okay, sorry I interrupted you. That's quite all right. So you're in the Washington National Guard. Do you have a role in the military? I do not. I retired in September of 2009 from the Washington National Guard. That was my 21st year, and honestly, it was just really difficult to do both that position, even though part-time, with the travel schedule I have with the ATF and still be an active father and husband. Okay, so decisions. Have you received awards related to your examination of a variety of explosive devices? I have. In the military, I received numerous awards. The highest was a Bronze Star for my action as a team leader in Afghanistan for some of the missions we went on and the actions we took. With ATF, I received the Johnny Massengill Memorial Award. It was an award that given for explosive investigation work each year by the Bureau, named after Special Agent Johnny Massengill, who was killed in the early 1990s during an explosive disposal from an illegal manufacturing operation. And why did you receive that award? That was that was for my part in the investigation. Myself, my partner, and the other case agent, 3 of us received it for the work in the bank bombing in Woodburn, Oregon in December 2009 that claimed the life of a state patrol bomb technician and a local police captain while working on the device. And what kind of bomb was that? Remote controlled. How many explosive enforcement officers are there in the ATF? It varies up and down by a couple, but around 23, 24 currently. So it's 23, 24 that you need to cover all these duties. It is. We keep the number relatively small to begin with. Even at full strength, I think we're authorized 30, and there's a reason for that. The main one is continuity in our decisions, our determinations. We work very closely with each other. We communicate directly with each other on our determination. So I think that's something is a device. I want to make sure my peers also think it's a device. It's very important that I'm not making a decision in a vacuum. My decisions are consistent with those across the nation. That's just a very important part for us because of what we have a peer review system in place. So if I write a determination, then another one of my counterparts or peers is to review the determination as well in the concurrence. Then it goes to a third level of review as well to ensure we're being consistent with our determinations. And I'm assuming that you attended some training related to these topics. I have. During my course of the career, it's ongoing. You never finished learning. You never finished training. I'm sure that that's true in every profession. Things are always changing, always evolving, but my initial training was the U.S. military, the U.S. Naval Explosives Ordnance Disposal School, which is the military's bomb disposal school. What is that? Currently located in England Air Force Base. At that time, it was in the Indian Head Naval Ordnance Station, which is where Maryland, Indian Head, Maryland. It's a 9-month course, and what doesn't seem that long, but for military standards, it's pretty long. The course, because you're going to every day, 8 hours to 10 hour day plus study at Hall at night. It's pretty intensive, but I began my career there, and that qualifies you as a basic explosive ordnance disposal technician. And then from there, during the course of your career, you go to advanced training on nuclear weapons, improvised devices, chemical weapons, biological weapons, post-blast investigation, electronics, as far as diffusing of improvised devices, the chemistry of pyrotechnics, chemistry of explosives. The list goes on for a while. And do you actually provide training yourself to others? I do on a regular basis. That the way it works on a federal level is I'm not first responding bomb technician. When people call 911, the local police department responds, hopefully the bomb squad, and whether it's state patrol or city police, I provide the support to them. So I'm an additional asset to help their manpower to bring additional resources to the table. It takes me longer to respond. I cover large territory, so I'm 22 bomb squads in the Seattle Field Division, which ATF covers Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Alaska, Hawaii, and Guam, as well as the Commonwealth of Northern Island, which is Sapan, Tinan, and Rota. So I have a large territory that myself and my partner cover. Have you been to all those places? I haven't been to all of the islands in the Commonwealth of Northern Marianas yet. I've been to Sapan and Rota. I haven't been in Tinan and other 2 smaller ones, but the rest of them I have and do on a regular basis. And we provide training for these bomb squads, whether it be post-blast training, post-blast investigations, training on emerging trends, homeland explosives, training on emerging trends and fusing technology. The way the IED is fused or rigged to go off. Just to be clear, IEDs refers to, improvised explosive device or a homemade bomb. And sometimes in your current role, you're called on to testify. Is that right regarding that is correct, determinations? I provide the part testimony of my determinations. And you've done that on other court cases. I have. In federal and state court, I'd like to turn now to the destructive devices. Okay, and how they're defined. Well, they're defined under the law, it seems. When I first came on the ATF, from an army, it didn't deal with the law as much. We dealt with the devices, the technical aspect, not the legal aspect. Destructive devices are under the law, classified under the National Firearms Act, the NFA, so they're really classified with the same as a machine gun or explosive device. It's defined in the law, and it refers, I can't quite quote the entire statute because it's kind of lengthy, but any explosive, incendiary, poison bomb, poison gas bomb, rocket missile, and then it goes on to say any weapon with a bore of more than ½ an inch, which is referred to a large caliber guns, 50 caliber, and it keeps on defining it down, so it breaks it down in several different elements to classify what is or is not a destructive device. But there's no exact listing saying this is, that isn't. It falls to us to look at the statute and say, does this fit within the statute or not on a case-by-case basis? And you mentioned that there's only 23 or 24 of you, correct, making the determination for the ATF. Are there certain qualifications to even be able to render these opinions for the ATF. There are. I mean, we when we get hired onto ATF, we have to have considerable experience as a working bomb technician by general, at least 10 years in the field prior to being hired to come on board. Once we come on board, we go to additional training, some of which is formal but in-bureau training, where we go to classes given by legal counsel, other senior EOs, indiscernible process that we go through, and we go through an on-the-job training process, which is 3-year journeyman process, where we all work as critiqued by senior EOs to ensure I'm falling within the right statutes and I'm gradually learning. Because unfortunately there are so many things that we encounter, so many varieties of items and so many differences in them, you just can't have a class and go, here's your list of what is and what isn't. It has to be learned over a given period of time. So how do you make a determination then? What do you look at? Well, we apply a scientific process to it when we develop a theory, then try to disprove the theory, but we look at several factors, and we basically take the statute and we divide it up, and in the first paragraph of the statute it says, it is explosive, incendiary. Okay, that's the bottom of page 11. I'll start at page 112 on the next recording. I can't do more. I've gone about an hour and 25 minutes, so that's long enough. But let me just say, building this guy up as some freaking expert that's beyond reproach, and he's got all these, Bronze Star and all of his, all these badges and stripes and awards. It's sickening to me because I don't put confidence in men's award, especially from this illegal foreign government. And so this government passes out badges and awards and Bronze Stars to anybody and everybody, especially under the Obama administration. And they build this guy up so when he says something like, oh, there may be a bomb, it's like the jury gets all excited, like, oh, the professional from the government says that it could be a bomb, So anyway, I think that's where they're going with this, but I'll end this for now. We'll pick it up later. Bye.